Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome back to our Bible study series. It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been quite a while since we did this, because last week we took a break because I was out of town for Christmas, and then the week before that we tried to do a Christmas thing, like a Christmas kind of special, but we didn't get to go far in it because things just got really crazy. But we are back now to talking about the Bible study series we have been on. We are going through a series on the Sermon on the Mount. We are on day 9 of this series, and we got a long way to go. We are nowhere close to done, guys. We've got to go through the whole Sermon on the Mount, and that is that is a lot of Matthew 5 and 6 that we got to go through. We're going to be talking about a lot of that, and we're breaking it down piece by piece. And today we are talking about engaging with the world. Now, before we get into talking about engaging with the world, I think it's important that we briefly talk about where we left off in talking about the Sermon on the Mount. What we have been doing the last 8 days of the series, we've been talking about the Beatitudes, which are the blessings that Jesus talks about. And if you guys want to hear more about that, go back and start at the very beginning and watch the series from there to now, and you'll hear all about the 8 Beatitudes and how important they are and what Jesus has to say, who are blessed and why. But now we're done with the Beatitudes and we're getting into the sermon proper, getting into the Sermon on the Mount proper, and we're starting off with how Jesus wants us to engage with the world. Now, before we jump into what Jesus has to say with this, I want to make one other thing perfectly clear. Many of you who are Christian and have spent any time growing up in the Word or in the church have probably heard these next few verses before. And my concern is that as soon as you hear me read these verses to you, you're going to check out. You're basically going to say, I know this one. I know this one, Raven. I got it. I already know what you're going to say. But please listen. I think one of the biggest problems a lot of young Christians have is they think they understand all there is to know about verses they've heard before and check out when they should be really engaging with the Word. So turn to Matthew 5, 13 through 16. While you're turning there, take a moment and consider what it means to engage with the world. What does it look like for a Christian to engage with the world? There is no question that the world is a chaotic, crazy, and evil place. Yes, there are moments of beauty in it. But overall, if you look at the news, if you leave your home and just walk around, you're going to notice that there are things about it that make your skin crawl. Jesus warns us constantly in the Bible that this world is fallen and this world will hate you. In fact, the very last beatitude that we talked about, blessed are the persecuted, Jesus makes it clear you will be persecuted for following me. You're going to be hated by the world because the world hates me. But we still have to interact with the world. So what does Jesus say about it? Well, that's where we get to Matthew 5, 13 through 16. Follow along with me. Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Now, many of you probably know some of these verses. You may not know them well, but have you ever heard the song, "This Little Light of Mine"? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. It comes from this verse, where Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand and gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So many Christians are at least passingly familiar with these verses, but what do they mean? That's what we're going to unpack today. What I want to do today is I want to do two things. First, I want to break down how we as Christians tend to approach the world, what we usually do, what our usual plans are, and then I want to tell you how God wants us to engage with the world. So let's start with how we approach the world. There are 3 ways that Christians usually approach the world. First is isolation. A lot of us look at the world and its chaos and we decide to run from it or hide from it. What we do is we kind of build for ourselves this little Christian bubble, and we just keep it all to ourselves, you know? We make our faith private. I can't tell you how many people have said, you know, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't really talk to people about it, you know? That's between me and God. Like, I don't really go to church, you know? It's a personal thing, my faith with me and God. I don't really make a big deal about it. People know you're Christian because you say you are, but you don't talk about it. You don't live it. You just kind of go, oh, well, you know, yeah, I am Christian, but, you know, it's not that big a deal. We make our faith private, and that isn't healthy. That isn't healthy. In fact, it's unbiblical. What about the verses we just read make it sound like your faith is private? You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden, and neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others. There is nothing private about your faith with Christ. There's nothing private about our relationship with Christ. Jesus makes it clear it needs to be shown. Don't hide it. And yet so many of us do. I can't tell you how many people do that. They just keep it like, it's in this little bubble. It's its little compartment of our life. But you can't compartmentalize Jesus. That is not the Christian way. The second way we tend to approach the world is imitation. You know, Jesus says something very interesting here. He says, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything. Now, scientifically speaking, you can't make salt less salty. So what's Jesus saying here? Well, there's a reason. Back in this day and age, the way that people got salt is usually you went down to the Dead Sea, which is a super salty body of water. In fact, it's so salty that regularly lumps of salt will just be pushed up onto the shore. And so what sellers do is they go to the Dead Sea and they collect these lumps of salt and take them to sell at the market. The problem is, the longer the salt sits on those shores, it begins to collect sand and other minerals from the shore, to the point that that salt, it's mixed in with a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of stuff mixed into it. And it's so hard to pick out all those other minerals and sand particles out of the salt. And at that point, what you have is a half sort of salty mixture of something unrecognizable. And you're going to go, yeah, that tastes nasty, and then throw it out. That's how the salt lump loses its saltiness, when it mixes too much with other things not salty. And that's what Jesus is referencing. But unfortunately, guys, that is one of the problems we face as Christians in this world. It's one of the problems facing the modern church. One of the major problems facing the church today is that it's trying too hard to imitate the world. It's trying to mix itself with the world. We are not meant to imitate the world, but to stand apart from it. We're not meant to embody the ideals and values of this world, but to stand opposed to them. But the greatest problem I've seen in the modern church is a desire to adjust or modernize the church's teachings and values to reflect modern sensibilities. And this is, in essence, mixing with the world. We're mixing things that should not be there and removing our saltiness. When the church drifts away from the Word of God, and the reasoning being, look, we've got to evolve with the world. That is them deliberately mixing with the world. Now, does this mean that we can't look to the world and understand the world and learn? No, that doesn't mean that. But when we start adopting ideology to the world, when we try to be like the world, when we try to emulate the world, then we're not being who Christ wanted us to be. The third way that we engage with the world is intimidation. For some of you, you're terrified of the world, terrified of man more than God. Your approach to the world isn't isolation or imitation, but just fear and silence. You don't speak up. You say nothing. In fact, you pretend you're not even Christian. See, the isolating Christian will at least say, I'm Christian, but I keep it private. And an imitating man will say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm flexible. But an intimidated man may not even go that far. They may not even say, I'm Christian, because he's afraid of the world. Or worse, they'll be afraid of the world to the point that they lash out at anyone who engages with it. Elements of LED in there. Guys, we cannot, and I'll repeat this, cannot approach the world this way. Isolated, imitated, or intimidated, we cannot approach the world this way. It is wrong, and it goes against what God called us to do. We should not be afraid of the world. We should not try to be like the world, and we should not hide ourselves from the world. So what does God want us to do? What's God's plan for engaging with the world? Well, it all comes down to one word. It all comes down to one word. Impact. God's plan for engaging with the world is impact. Think about it. What are the two things Jesus says we are? Salt and light. Salt and light leave an impact. The minute you wake up in the morning and a light is shining through your bedroom window and hitting your eyes, you can't ignore that. You can roll over, you can try to get under your covers, but the deed is done. You've now been hit with the morning light. You're now waking up. When you eat food that is supposed to be salty, but it is missing that salt, you notice this is not salted. You recognize it. And in the same way, people must recognize Christ in you. If your faith is not leaving an impact on people around you, your faith has been dulled. And you might say, well, Raven, hold on, I don't want to cause problems. I understand that. And trust me, I get it. But the world needs to see Christ in you. And yes, there are going to be people who react coldly, who react angrily, who become offended. That's the nature of it. Jesus warned us it would happen. But if we're not showing our faith, how can we bring the light of God to them? Because the first thing we need to understand about God's plan for engaging the world is that salt and light describe you and your mission. It is our mission to be the salt and light of the world. You know, in John 8:12, Jesus refers to himself as the light of the world. He says, I am the light of the world, and those who abide in me will not walk in darkness. But here, in Matthew 5, he calls us the light of the world. Why? Well, because he's giving us the command and authority to bring his light to others. We reflect his light in our actions, in our behavior, and in our approach to the world. Now, some of you are probably thinking this, and it's a common lie I hear, but it's this. You know what? I can't make a difference. I can't make a difference. That's the church's job to make a difference. It's not about the individual, it's about the collective, right? The church has to make a difference, not me. I've heard that before. What can an individual person do? This isn't about the individual. It's about the church, right? That's what it's supposed to be? No. I'm going to tell you guys a story. Grew up in the mountains most of my life. And if you've ever lived in the mountains, try going outside in the mountains, like in a rural open mountain range. Go out and look at the sky. It'll blow your mind. If you live in a city, you probably won't be able to appreciate this. But in the mountains, you will see this. During the daylight, you look up at the sky, simple. You don't see much. Clouds maybe, but at night you will see so many oceans of stars. And those stars can be so bright, you can actually see what's around you even without the need of a moon. I've seen it. You don't notice those stars during the daytime. You don't think about them because the sun is enough to keep things lit. But at night, when there is no sun and there is no moon, the stars can light things up. And you might think, Okay, but that's a lot of stars. You can't have a lot of stars until one gets lit up. Another example I can give you. I once knew this girl, sweetheart of a girl, and we were dating for a little while. One night, she stayed over. It was just more, we weren't doing anything inappropriate. She just needed to stay at my house for a little while because, well, she was staying with our family for Thanksgiving. And I gave her my room. I was going to sleep in the den. But she had trouble sleeping because there was this little nightlight. Now, I'd grown used to this nightlight since I was a kid. It doesn't bother me. But she couldn't sleep very well and had to remove the nightlight. I asked her why. I wasn't upset. I was just curious. She said, well, it's small, but it kept me up. You don't think about it during the day. But at night, you notice it. It makes an impact. It's one light, but you notice it. Consider how big our impact is, guys. Salt and light describe us and our mission for the earth. We are the salt of the earth. We are the light of the world. That is an impact. More than this, though, salt and light must be present because God must be glorified. Guys, if you know any astronomy or astrology or anything about that kind of stuff, you know that when you look at the moon, right, you see beautiful light. But that's not the moon shining. What the moon is doing is it's reflecting the sun's light. We, in the same way, reflect the son's light. At the end of the day, we're the light of the world because Jesus is the light of the world, and we're reflecting that light of Jesus to other people. People see us and they see the light and salt coming off of Jesus. Yes, the Bible calls us salt and light, but if we're not doing it for the glory of God, it's meaningless. I can do good deeds and help other people, but if I'm not doing it for God's glory, then it has no value. It only brings glory to ourselves. That's not what God called us to do. Salt and light must be present because God must be glorified. I have heard people say that we don't need a book to teach us how to be moral, to teach us how to be good. You're right. You don't need a book to do that. You don't need a book to teach you how to be moral or how to be good or how to reach other people. You don't need it. It's true. You don't. But that's because we have a God who established our morals. We expect good things from others. We expect good from others regardless of their faith because we have a moral standard established by God. And so we as Christians will go forth and perform these good deeds. We will be the salt and light of the earth because it is God's will that we do so. See, here's the difference. No one needs a book to teach them to be moral. But without God, you have a choice to be moral or not be moral. When you walk with God, living according to God's will is the only way you can live. Because you're reflecting the Lord. That's the difference. You may not need the book to teach you, but you need the God to maintain it. This is how we engage with the world. This is how we approach others. We cannot hide it. We cannot try to mix with it. And we cannot be afraid of it. Instead, we make an impact on the world. That is what we're called to do. Thank you for listening to this, guys. Excited to be doing these again. We are going to be continuing the Sermon on the Mount for quite some time. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we go about halfway through the year doing this. It's going to be awesome. Really excited for what's happening in 2026. And I look forward to the next episode. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on my next one. Take care.